Hey dudes! So apologies for like the ceiling lights. They're not the most flattering thing in the world, but it is what it is. So today I just wanted to make a video talking about how I got this place where I'm living right now. This is a one room in Korea, Seoul, Korea. It's around the Sinchon area, which is a pretty good area, especially if you're coming here and you're going to be like an exchange student, or you just want to be in a place that's sort of foreigner friendly but also pretty like vibrant and young and like somewhat exciting but not too crowded. It's a pretty good area in my opinion. I'm gonna talk about how I kind of got to this point. I used sort of like the local way of going to a realtor, which is definitely possible if you're a foreigner, but it is more difficult, and I highly recommend you bring a friend who speaks Korean fluently or is Korean. Of course, this will depend a bit on the actual place you go to as well, but yeah, I'm going to talk about the entire process. It's very different from what I'm used to back home. And then I will also talk a little bit about cost at the end, just because, you know, you're probably curious. So I started looking for a place to live while I was in quarantine. I did look a little bit before coming to Korea, and I did a lot of online research about like the whole process of finding like a long-term place to live. There's definitely options that are easier if you're a foreigner. They're probably more expensive though, like getting places that are specifically made for foreigners or using Airbnb. I found Airbnb for the most part to be more expensive. Even if you go for like a monthly Airbnb kind of thing where you do get like, I don't know, 10% discount or something every month, I still think that for the most part when I looked, Airbnb was more expensive. There's also Craigslist or share houses. Like there are many options for that are more like foreigner friendly, but this is like more of like the normal like traditional way, question mark. But based on the research that I did online, it did not seem like there was like any point in looking too early, because it kind of moves really quickly and there's no really point in starting to look like 2 months in advance. It's better to look like maybe 1 week in advance at most. So I didn't really start looking seriously until I got into quarantine, and while I was in quarantine I looked at different apps, and I have a friend whose cousin is a realtor that I talked to as well. And overall I ended up using the app called TikTok, which is sort of the app that most people will use. I think it's the most common one. There are other apps as well, but TikTok is the one that I used. It's in Korean though. I don't think that it has an English option. So I used the app, and you know, initially in my head, the rooms that I saw there would be the rooms that I would be, you know, applying to or looking to rent. But apparently, according to the internet, that's not the case. Also, according to my own experience, it's not really the case. So my first tip is that you use the app to find something that sort of fits your criteria, and then you contact a realtor. Because how the app works is that you'll go into the app, you'll choose like an area or a station or something like that. You like choose your criteria and also like how much you want to pay in rent and how much you want to pay in like deposit and stuff. Or you can just browse in general. But you do that and then you go into like a specific listing, which will be for a room, and then you know there will be like information about the room itself, and then at the bottom there will be information about the realtor. Because in Korea most people use realtor even for rentals. In Norway that's not that common. In Norway you typically rent directly from the house owner, and then if you purchase stuff you usually do that via like a realtor or whatever. Yeah, went into the app and I found some things that I felt like you know, it fits my area and also like my budget and somewhat like stuff like that. And then I contacted the realtor through the app, and I wrote to them, you know, I wrote to them basically that I'm not very good at Korean, because they did say on their like information thing that they had services in English, Chinese, Japanese, and Korean. I don't think this is always true though. I think when they write that, they're probably more thinking that maybe they have like one person in the office that might be able to do it, but the person that I talked to could not speak English, so I'm not really sure why they put that there. Anyways, contacted them, just told them that, I like this room, I'm going to be here for 6 months, I am a foreign student who's going to be studying at Yonsei University, like stuff like that. And then I did this pretty late in the evening, I think. I think the app doesn't send the messages until like work hours, so I think I sent it around like 11 p.m, but the app only sends it out at like 8 a.m. the next morning. And then after a while, I got a text message back. Was it through the app? I don't remember. No, yeah, I think it was a normal text message. So you have to put in a Korean number for this. And you know, they basically asked like, do you have like a Korean friend that you can bring with you and stuff like that? Because they couldn't really speak English, I guess. And you know, after some back and forth, we ended up making like a time, like the day I finished quarantine, after I finished quarantine, I'm supposed to meet them and then we will try to find a place for me to live. Now, I actually thought we were supposed to go to the room that I sent the inquiry about, but that's not what we did. We actually went to their office, like the realtor office. And then once we got there, you know, we greeted them and stuff, and then we just sat down and had a talk. So even if I had looked at like a specific room that I thought I wanted to rent, That's apparently not really how it works. So we sat down and we had a talk, and he asked me about like my budget, like how long will you stay, how much can you pay, how much can you put down in deposit, things like that. I said that originally my budget was 600,000 won per rent and 1 million in deposit. And he said, that's too little in deposit. Because I think some places that would be possible, but for the most part, he really recommended me to go up in deposit a bit. So I ended up paying 2 million one in deposit. Or at least I told him that was like, okay, I can maybe do 2 million for a deposit. And he was like, cool. So after having a discussion like this and sort of like terms, how long I would stay and things like that. After that, he basically made a list for himself, wrote down some numbers, checked with some things. I've heard that sometimes they'll show you like the database on the screen, like show you the rooms available, and you can like choose and whatever. He didn't do that for us. Like he just wrote down some things, and then he was like, okay, let's go. Let's go look at places. So we got into the realtor's car, and then for like a good while, he was just sitting there calling people. He was basically calling landlords, and he's like, hello, I have a student here who's going to be studying at Yonsei University. She's Norwegian. She wants to stay here for 6 months, and she has this in deposit. And you know, the conversations were in Korean, but I sort of understood like some of it. And for the most part, like some of them were like, sure, whatever. Some of them were like, no, the deposit is way too low. And some of them were like, no, that's too short of a term. Like they wanted more long-term residence. I'm pretty sure like a standard contract here in Korea is 2 years. So, you know, 6 months is a lot less than that when the standard is 2 years. But after having a bunch of calls, I think he had like maybe 3 places that he was like, sure, we can go look at these places. And then he just drove off. So the first place we went to look at was actually the place that I did see in the listing. So that place was real, though I do think several realtors have that covered like in the same area, because I saw the same room on different listings with different realtor offices. But we went there, and he did tell us in advance, you're probably not gonna like this room. It does not look that good in real life. It's not that good of a room, but since you want to look at it, it was also the cheapest room, but since you want to look at it, we can go look. And then we went there, and I didn't like it. So we were out of there pretty quickly, and he's like, okay, next place. He drove us to the next place. We went there and looked. The next place was actually like fine. It wasn't great, but it was like okay. It was kind of bigger place, but it didn't really have a lot of furniture, and like, how do I explain this? It was a bit shabby. Sort of like if you have a room that's not modern, and then you just kind of like plaster like stick-on things, like stick-on wallpaper or stick-on flooring to make it look nicer. But you can really tell that it's not real flooring that's nice. It's just, you know, it had sort of that feel. I could probably have lived there, but there was also construction going on like just outside. So yeah, I didn't really feel that place either that much. But while we were there, he had a phone call with someone or something, and then he said, okay, we should hurry to the last place because the last place is apparently the best one. And he said that someone else was just there to look at that room, so if I wanted it, we'd had to like really hurry. So, you know, we rushed out of that place, and then we went to the third place, which is where I'm living right now. So we came here, and he was like, okay, this place is good. It's like a quiet location. He also asked, is it okay even if it's on top of a hill? So, you know, we got here, had a look at the room. He's like, okay, the closet is new, the bed is new, like the desk is new, like it has a lot of like good amenities and stuff. And I looked at it and I'm like, yes, I like it. And that was pretty much it. We just decided, okay, I'll take this place. Also, he did ask a lot of the landlords and stuff, like, can she move in today? Because that was one of my requirements. And yeah, so we ended up going here. I'm assuming that if I didn't like this place either, he would probably get back in the car and maybe call up on a couple other places and see if we could go there instead. I'm not actually sure what happens if you don't like anything he shows you, but yeah, I like this place. So after that, we went back to the realtor's office. Like, he drove us back, he drove us everywhere. And then we made contracts. And this part, for the most part, I just sat there for a while. Like, he asked for some information. So, you know, I gave him my passport because I don't have a residence card. I didn't have a residence number. So I gave him the passport, and then he also asked for my phone number, and I said, I have one now, but I'll get a new one like next week because we got one from school. So he said, okay, sure. And then he basically, like, my Korean friend has sort of been like my contact between me and all like living things. So she basically said, okay, I'll give her new number to you when she gets it. So, you know, it's probably better if you can deal with these things by yourself, like have direct contact with them, but that does require knowing some Korean. So it's really helpful if you have someone who can help you. It's gonna be a lot more difficult without, but you know, I'm just putting it out there. So yeah, I gave him like my information, and then he made a contract on the computer, and then he printed like 3 copies or something, 4 copies, I don't know how many copies. I just signed a bunch of stuff after that. Signed the stuff, and also he went through the terms, things like, you know, there's not allowed to smoke, not allowed to have animals, like you will be paying gas and electricity separately. When you're moving out, you have to notify the landlord sometime in advance, just like things like that. And then also he said, okay, so this is going to be the deposit, 2 million won. And then also this is the first month's rent, so I'm paying rent in advance, which is 550,000 won. And then also the realtor's fee, which was like 218,000 won if I remember correctly. It's on my contract, but I can't be bothered to get it out. So yeah, I also had to pay a realtor's fee. So after like, we made the contracts, I signed everything. And then I just sat there for a while, wire transferring everything, because I had to like split it up a bit because the amount was kind of big. And I just did that for a while. Like I just paid everything, signed the contract, paid all the stuff. And then, and this is probably just like because the realtor was like kind or whatever, I don't think this is required, but my friend asked if he could drive us back to the place where I'm moving in with my luggage, because my luggage was in the locker in the station. And he's like, sure, I can do that. I don't think that's like standard, but since I had a lot of stuff, he wanted to be kind, so me and my friend walked back to the station. Oh, actually, he drove us back to the station, which was not far away, like maybe 5 minutes to walk, but he drove us to the station. Then me and my friend went down to get my luggage out of the locker, and then we went up, put it in the car, he drove us to the place, and that was pretty much it. That was the process of finding a place to live. I hope I kind of told it sort of in a cohesive sense, like you understand how the process went. It was very like, it was pretty straightforward, but it's also very different from what I'm used to, because back home, again, we rent things directly from the house owner, so if you see a room, then that's gonna be the room that you're looking for. It's not gonna be like, this room is like a placeholder for all the rooms we represent, if you know what I mean. But then after that initial search, yeah, it was pretty easy. You just went there and had a conversation, then he showed you stuff, and then, I chose a thing, we went back to the office, got the contract, and then moved in on the same day. It is kind of nice to have a realtor actually, like you have like the help and the service of one, even though you have to pay for it, which is like, it's not cheap in my opinion to pay like 200,000 won for a realtor's fee. But yeah, that's pretty much the process. I also told you the prices, but just to reiterate in case you forgot, my rent is 550,000 won for one room in the Sinchon area. It's not super close to the station, so that's probably something that lowers the price a little bit, but it's got all the amenities. The building is, I have no idea how old, but it doesn't feel very old. It feels like sort of somewhere in the middle, not super new, not old. It's also in a pretty quiet area, which I don't know if that drives the price up or down. I have no idea, because it's less central, but it's also less noisy. And again, the realtor's fee was, I believe, 218,000. It was above 200,000 won. I'm pretty sure it was 218,000, which is, I think, maximum, because he did say that it would be somewhere between like 150 to 200, and it ended up being 218. I don't actually know what makes the price change, but I don't really care that much. It is what it is. It costs what it costs. I don't think this is a place where you can bargain the price. So that was my experience. Now, just before I leave, I'm just gonna give like just some tips on the top of my head. It's not really that you need that much tips. It's just more like my thoughts about the process if you're coming in as a foreigner and this is new to you as well. First of all, when you use the apps to find a place to live, if it's like a local app, like the app is in Korean, it's not aimed at foreigners, kind of, yeah, it's probably a good idea to just assume that the rooms you're looking for might not be the rooms that are actually available. Think of them sort of as a placeholder for what you could have, maybe. And in that regard, I think that my tip would be to use the apps to look for a realtor that has things that sort of represent your preferences. So basically, if you have like this much rent and this much deposit and this area in mind, use those criterias and then see if you can find some realtor descriptions that seem nice. Like, I think almost the realtor descriptions are more important than the rooms themselves, because the rooms themselves might not be available. It's mostly about location and price, I think. Because if there's a realtor who has rooms in the right price range and in the right area, then even if that specific room isn't available, they might have other things that are similar, because that might just be like, their area of expertise or their sort of customer base. And then also, when you contact a realtor, if you do not speak Korean like at all and you don't have a friend who can help you, just make sure that they know that. Because in my case, I told them that I didn't really speak Korean, but everything ended up happening in Korean anyways because I brought a Korean friend. If I didn't have that friend, we would have had a lot more issues, I think. I don't really recommend signing contracts and stuff without being able to understand them. So if you don't have anyone who can help you, you need to make sure that you find a realtor who does speak a language that you can speak. And then I guess lastly, it's not really a tip, it's just like my final thought about this. I kind of do think, since I'm only here for 6 months, I kind of do think that if I were to do it again, I might have chosen a different way to do it. Like, I love having a one room. I love the privacy. I love the freedom. I don't really have any rules other than, don't trash the room, don't bring up pets, and don't smoke. I don't have any like rules about curfews or visitation or anything like that. It's just, you know, normal place to live. I do love all the things, but there is a part of me that kind of wishes that I chose something easier as a foreigner, since I'm here for 6 months. Like paying electricity bills or gas bills and stuff like that manually it's just a little bit difficult compared to if it was all included in the rent. If you do like the more foreigner friendly, short-term friendly options, they're probably going to be more expensive like per month, but you will save a lot of headaches and a lot of like, how does this work, how do I do this? Because even if it's nice if you have a friend who can help you and stuff, I have to say it doesn't actually feel that nice to know that you're so dependent on someone else. It does feel a bit better when you know that you can kind of do things more independently. But those are just my thoughts. You don't have to listen to them, of course, if you don't feel like it. I just figured I would mention it in case you're thinking about how you're going to sort of like do your living situation if you're coming to Korea. And yeah, I don't think there's anything else that I feel like I need to mention about this, but if you have any questions, do feel free to leave them in the comments. I'll try to respond to them if I know the answer. I've only done this once, so I don't know if there's a lot of things that can vary or things that are different depending on factors. But this was my experience, and based on what I saw online, it seems to be a relatively common way to do it, like a pretty common experience. But yeah, that's it. Thank you so much for watching. Do subscribe or leave a comment if there's anything else you want me to talk about. I am currently a little under halfway through my stay here in Korea, doing like language school at Yonsei University on D4 student visa, like trainee visa. So if you have any questions relating to that, do let me know and I might make a video about it. I just need to think about it first. And yeah, I'll see you in the next one, okay?